Hashem, we're going to do the Daf Yomi now for the first day, for the seventh day of Pesach, which is Shabbos, and also the eighth day of Pesach, which is Sunday. So the Mishnah tells us, Echad, and we're starting on the middle of Makkos Yud Aleph 11a, and the Daf is dedicated for Shmir for the Chayalim Matzal for the Shvuyim and Yeshua for Am Yisrael. Echad Mashuach b'Shem and Mishcha ve'Echad Meruba b'Gadim, says the Mishnah on 11a, whether there was a Kohen who was anointed with the oil, Hashem and Mishcha, like Aaron, a Kohen, ve'Echad Meruba b'Gadim, that at a certain point Hashem and Mishcha was lost. And so from the time of Yoshiyahu and onward, Rashi says the Shemen HaMishcha, the anointing oil, was lost, as it says in Hario, it's 12a. And so then they stopped anointing these Kohanim Gedolim, and they just had 8 garments as opposed to 4. Or whether it was the Kohen Gadol who was retired. That when they die, the person who killed accidentally is freed from captivity. He's freed from the city of refuge. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Af Mashoch Melchama. Rabbi Yehuda says also the Kohen was anointed to lead the people into battle. He also brings the murderer back. Therefore, the mothers of the Kohanim used to be Mesapkos and Milchyoxus, used to bring them food and clothing, so that they wouldn't daven so that the murderers wouldn't daven, so that their children would die. So therefore, they would bring them food and clothing. What's the source for the idea that all 3 of these Kohanim, when they die, when any of these 3 Kohanim die, the Rotzeach goes free? So Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, V'yeshev ba, it says that he will stay there on Mos. V'yashav ba on Mos HaKohen HaGadol, stay there until the Kohen Gadol dies. V'chsev ki be'ir mikoto Yeshev on Mos HaKohen HaGadol, and he'll stay in the city until the Kohen Gadol dies. And the third pasuk, V'chsev achrei Mos HaKohen Gadol. So we have 3 psukim. Rabbi Yehuda, Ksiv Krachrin. Rabbi Yehuda says there's another pasuk. It says Lashuv Sheves Ba'aretz an Mos HaKohen. It says to return, to stay in the land until the Kohen dies. V'idach midalo Ksiv HaGadol Chad Mehanachu. And so the other idea is, it says, and that fact that it doesn't say Hagadol means that it refers to one of the other 3 Kohanim. So the mothers of the Kohanim would bring food so that they wouldn't pray that their sons would die. Means to say that why did the son not die? Because they didn't pray. But if they would pray, Maisi, he would die. How could that be? Like a bird to flutter away, like a bird to fly away. Okay, so is kilastinam, both. So to a curse for nothing will not come. So how come if this person was wicked, why is his curse take effect? So there was an Saba from the teaching of Rava who said, I heard so he said they should have asked for mercy for this present, and they didn't ask for mercy. They should have, not for the present, one mistake. So he says they should have asked for compassion or mercy for their generation, and they didn't make that request. And so therefore, that's how this person died. So it's their responsibility. And others learned this mission differently. He brought them food so that they should pray for their children so that they do not die. Time of the matzu, that's the reason they pray. But if they wouldn't pray, their sons, the Kohen Gadol, would die. What could he have done? Mar says, and here's what we say. This Tuvia Chata V'Zigud Mange. This is a case. In Arvei Psachim, Tuvia did a sin, and Zigud testified about him by himself, because there weren't 2 people to testify. And Rav Papa gave Zigud lashes. So we see from here that Tuvia did a sin, and Zigud is the one who got the lashes. And Hasam Amrinan, or in Eretz Yisrael, they say Shlem Nasif Bagai Gazir. That Shlem is the one who wanted to marry Dinah, and Mabgai is the one who got the had a circumcised. He said, he said, he said they should have requested compassion for their generation. There was a man who a lion ate him three parsim away from Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And Eliyahu didn't come and visit him for 3 days. And this is being taught on the eve of the last day of Pesach. And the custom is that the last day of Pesach, Eliyahu Navi comes right after that. So we see from here that Eliyahu Navi come if everybody's davening for everybody in their generation. The curse of a wise man, even if it's said improperly, it still comes. We know what's the source from Achitophel. When David was digging Shitin, he was digging down into the ground so that the Beis Mikdash could have foundation. Then the earth, the water started to overflow the earth. It's about to drown the earth. He said, can I write God's name on a piece of pottery and throw it down there? To stop the water. There was nobody said anything. Whoever knows this matter and doesn't say it, he should choke. So Achitophel made an argument, a logical argument. He said, just like to make peace between a husband and wife. Amra Torah, he says, God says, my name, which is written in holiness, should be erased. I am on water, coal and cool to save the whole world. For sure, it's the case. Amrway, Shari. So he says it's permitted. Katav Shema Chaspa, her name on a piece of pottery, and Shadi Ata Homa, and he threw it into the depths. Nachas become a dochte. So it went down and stood in its place. And even though it's still written, that Achitophel did not follow his advice. So in the end, Achitophel died by strangulation. If you the curse of a chacham, even by a condition, it will still come. We know what's the source. From Eli, the Amrway, Eli Shmuel, from Eli Feit Shmuel, Kol Yasel Chayil Kim Kol Yatzif Im Techachemi Many Davar. This will happen to you if you hold back anything from me. V'Alfa Gav Dochsev Vayaged Lo Shmuel is called Varim Lo Chichen Mimenu. Even though it says Shmuel said all these things and he didn't hold back from him. V'Afilu Achiksiv Lo Holchu Banu B'Drachav. He didn't follow his path. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Nidoi Al Tanai. We say that a nidoi, that if you excommunicate somebody, conditional Torah Chafar, it still needs rejection. We know Yehuda, what's the source from Judah? They'll say, if I will not bring him to you. So Judah said, if I don't bring him back to you, excommunicate me. And we know that he was excommunicated. What's the source for this idea? The source for the idea is it says all those 40 years that Jewish people were in the wilderness. The bones of Judah were rolling around in the ark. And Moshe stood up, requested mercy for Judah. What caused Reuven to confess? What caused Reuven to confess? Yehuda. As it states, Vizos Yehuda. This is for Judah. Shama Hashem called Yehuda. So God heard the sound of Yehuda. Oh, Ivr L'Shape. He brought his limbs back together. There was nobody who was there was nobody who was able to take Yehuda into the yeshiva in heaven. It says, so Moshe prayed so Judah could come into the yeshiva in heaven. But Judah still didn't know how to do the shackle and tari, how to have a discussion about in the yeshiva Shamala. So B'shmaite B'ad so Yadav Rav, so Moshe Rabbeinu prayed again. He didn't know how to answer anything. Ibayahu, so now the Gemara asks the question, Misas Kohen Uchozer Odom of Misas Echman, does the Kohen, does the Rotech, does the murderer go back when all three die or only when one of them dies? Tashman Ning Mardina Below Kohen Gadol, any Yotze Misham Laom. Because if the Kohen Gadol, if he's sentenced to death and sentenced to the city of refuge and there's no Kohen Gadol, then he never leaves. If that's the case, that they're one of the other ones, he should be able to go back when one of the other ones are there. Where says Bidalaker? No, that's talking about a case where there isn't even one of the other ones. Okay, so now the Mishnah says, Mishanig Mardino Mace Kohen Gadol. Now the Mishnah is going to talk about the case that we just discussed. If when he's sentenced to death, the Kohen Gadol dies, then he doesn't go into exile. If before he's sentenced to death, the Kohen Gadol dies, and someone else is pointing in his place, and afterwards he's sentenced to death. So he goes back by the death of the second one. Ning Mardino below Kohen Gadol. Let's say he sentenced to death without the Kohen Gadol, but already Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol Sharek, Eno Yotzim Misham La'om. And somebody who kills a Kohen Gadol and Kohen Gadol kills, he never leaves from there. Eno Yotze Lo Eidus Mitzvah, Lo Eidus Mamon, Lo Eidus Nefashos. And once he's in the city of refuge, he doesn't go out even to testify for a mitzvah, like for example, about Kiddush Levana, and not for Eidos Mamon, and not for money, and not for capital case. So I feel Israel, even if the Jewish people need him, I feel it's starts of Israel, even if he's a general like Yoav, he never departs from there, as it states, Asher Shama, Shamte Durasa, Shamte Misa. So the ones who runs there he has to live, and there will be his death, and Shamte Kfurasa, there will be buried. Kshem Shayir Koet, that's just like the city of refuge. Receives him kach tchuma koit. So to the border, the whole tchum, the borders around it also absorbs him. Let's say he leaves, the murderer leaves the area. Matzu go adam, and then blood avenger finds him. It's a mitzvah for the blood avenger to kill him. Rishus biad kol adam. It's a rishus for everybody else. Rabbi Kiva Omer rishus biad kol adam. It's a permission for everybody else. Kol adam. And everybody else is going to be sentenced to death, put to death for killing him. My time, what's the reasoning? What's the reason that if he's Nigmardino and the Kohen Gadol is not alive, he does not go, if he's Nigmardino and then afterwards the Kohen Gadol dies, then he doesn't go to exile. It's a logical argument. Just like somebody went to exile, Yatza, he goes free. Achshav Misha will go. One who never went to exile, ain't no din shelo yigla. For sure, he shouldn't go into exile. Maybe the exile is what gave him the atonement. Hide the logo, and hide the logo, and the one who didn't go into exile doesn't get atonement. So where it says, "Me they go as mechaper." So you think the exile is what gives him atonement? Mises Kohen with the mechaper. The death of the Kohen is what gives him atonement. If the Kohen dies before the sentence is given, then he never goes free. What's the source? It says, and most a Kohen Gadol. He stays there until the Kohen Gadol dies. Asher Mashachato b'Shemen HaKodesh, who's anointed with the holy oil. Is he the one who anointed him? Nimshach b'Yamav, the one who was anointed in his lifetime. But what could the Kohen have done? He should have requested mercy that the judgment will be done properly, and he didn't request it. Once he was sentenced to death and then he dies, that's most of Hashem. You bring his bones here. He settles in the land until the Kohen dies. What's the yeshiva that's in the land? This is burial. Tana Meis Kodem Shemeis Kohen Gadol. Let's say he dies before the Kohen Gadol dies. Malichin Atzmosav Al Kivrei Avosav. So then they bring his bones to the graves of his father. This is burial. So let's say he was sentenced to death, and then they discovered that the Kohen was not a valid Kohen. He was a Ben Grusha or Ben Chalutza. Pligi by Rabbi Yami, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. It's the argument between Rabbi Yami and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Chadamar Meisa Kuna, Chadamar Batla Kuna. One says that it's like the Kohen died, and then therefore he goes free, and one says like he was never going in the first place, and so he never goes free. And we'll put to the Rebbe Lazar, Rebbe Yeshua, maybe this is like the similar argument about Rebbe Lazar and Rebbe Yeshua. Because we learned that let's say he's bringing a sacrifice for Noda, Shu Ben Grusha Ben Chutz, and it was discovered he's a son of a divorce here, son of a Chutz, Rebbe Lazar, Omar Kol Karbana Shekrib. So Rebbe Lazar says all the sacrifices that he brought are disqualified. Rebbe Yeshua Machshir, Rebbe Yeshua says they're kosher. Nanda Amar May, so the one who says it's like the Kohen has died, he holds like Rabbi Yeshua, that they're all disqualified. Nanda Amar Batla, he's like, the one says it's nullified, is like Rabbi Elazar, who says that they're kosher from this point on. It's like Rabbi Elazar, who says that they're all disqualified. It's like Rabbi Yeshua says kosher is like the one who says died. The Gemara says, Aliba, Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rabbi Eliezer, everybody would agree with Rabbi Eliezer, who says that it's disqualified. Everybody would agree that that there's no dispute that even one who says it's like the Kohen died, he would admit to Rabbi Lezer does not agree with him. He says it's like he holds that it's canceled, and because he says it's like there never was a Kohen. According to Rabbi Shua is mouth share in that case. Madamar Mace, the one who says like he died, he's like Rabbi Yeshua. And then it's okay, and it goes free. Umanda Amar Batla Adkan will come Rabbi Yeshua. Why did Rabbi Yeshua say in that case that it's not disqualified retroactively? Barech Hashem Chaylo Paul Yadav Tirtzeh. It means I feel Chalal and Shabbat that even if they're disqualified at kosher, Avol Hacha. But in this case, I feel Rabbi Yeshua Modeh. Even Rabbi Yeshua would admit in this case that it's disqualified, and so therefore. He was not a Kohen Gadol at the time of that the sentence was done, and therefore he never goes free. Ding Mardino, even if he's like Yoav, the general, he never goes free. Amar Rav Yehuda, Shtei Toyos Toyov both. So Yoav ran away from Yoav ran away from Shlomo Melech, and he ran to the Mizbeach, and he thought the Mizbeach would save him. Yoav Hashem Yechazek B'Karnos Mizbeach, and he grabbed a hold of the horns, but the horns didn't save him, and Shlomo Melech took him away from the Mizbeach. So what was the mistake of Yoav? He made two mistakes. The only thing that saves him is the roof. When he held the horns. And the only thing that saves him is the Beis Hamikdash. And he grabbed a hold of the Mizbeach of Shiloh. Abai said also, this is also filled with a mistake. The only thing that saved him was he thought a mistake that he also made a mistake. He thought that the only one who is saved is if he'll be a Kohen while he's doing the avodah of Huzaraya, but he was a non-Kohen. In the time of Gogol Magog, also reference to the 8th day of Pesach, this is the daf for the 8th day of Pesach. In the time of the angel of Samal, the angel of Rome, he made a mistake in the future because it said, he thought, because the only city that saves is the city of Betzer. Who go Batzer, where this angel of Rome ran to Batzer. It only saves you if you killed accidentally. But this angel of Rome was purposeful. Adam. It only saves the human, and he was an angel. So he says the cities of refuge were not given to the Levites for burial, meaning you can't be buried them. It says they were given to live and not for burial. It says in the Brisa, Shama Shamte De Rasa, Shamte Misa. So Shamte Rasa. The Brisa says explicitly you could be buried there. You die there and you live there. No, the Gemara says specifically that a murderer is different. The Gali Beirachmana, the murderer is buried there, but the regular Levites are not. Kashem Shayir Koletes, just like the city absorbs you, so too does the Tchum absorb you. Braminu v'yashav ba, ba'avo b'tchuma. It says he lived there and you're not in the Tchum. No, to save you, as long as you're within the Tchum. But to live, you have to live in the city. Badur, typically, well, anyway, we know you can't live outside the actual city. The Enos in Sada and Migrash and Migrash Sada, that you're not allowed to make the field outside of the place of the city, a place where you live. Will migrash here, will your migrash. No, you might think I can make a tunnel underneath and live there. No, you can't. If the murderer leaves the area, then there's a dispute whether or not it's a mitzvah to kill him or you're allowed to kill him. The blood avenger shall kill the murderer. Mitzvah bi'ad go adam. So Rabbi Yosef Glili says it's a mitzvah for the blood avenger to kill him. Ain't go adam, if there's no blood avenger, reshus bi'ad go adam. Then anybody else is allowed to. Different Rabbi Yosef Glili. Rabbi Akiva says reshus bi'ad go adam. No, he's allowed to do it. The blood avenger is allowed to. Everybody else is responsible. My time of the and everybody else will be found guilty. My time of the Rabbi Yosef Glili. What's the reason why Rabbi Yosef Glili says it's a mitzvah? Miksev im ratzach. It says ratzach. So it's a mitzvah. Rabbi Akiva, miksev yirtzach. Doesn't say you should kill him. He says if a murderer leaves the tchum, the blood avenger finds him and kills him, he's killed for it. So this is a third position that even the blood avenger can't do it. Come on, look Rabbi Yosef, look Rabbi Akiva. Who's this position like? The Rav is not like either Rabbi Yosef or Rabbi Akiva. So Gemara says, "Who Amar Tana the Tanya Rabbi Lezer Omer Adam do if mishpat until he stands in front of the community for justice." I might have thought Yachom miyad. I might have thought you kill him immediately. Tam Omer Adam do if mishpat. No, if the blood avenger this guy has to stand trial. Until he stands trial, the blood avenger is responsible for killing him. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Kiva, Adam Dofnei Mishpat my Tashmei. What do they learn from it? Only by the Tanya, Rabbi Kiva Omer Menayin Sanhedrin. They teach us the following halacha. How do you know the Sanhedrin Shiro Echad Sharagas and Nefesh Shem Misim? So if Sanhedrin sees that somebody killed somebody, we don't put him to death right away. Achiyamo bebezin acher. He has to go before another court. Tam Omer Adam Dofnei Adom Mishpat Achiyamo bebezin acher. He has to stand in front of another court. If the murder goes out, and how do I know if he goes out b'shogeg, he's also put to death? Where it says b'shogeg go ahead, but didn't we say b'mezid he's killed, but b'shogeg goes into exile? Whether or not the Torah speaks in the way of man. Adam. It's obviously logical to say, like the one who says the Torah speaks like a normal person. Because we don't want the conclusion to be more strict in the beginning. Just like at the outset, if he killed a person, if he killed him purposely, he's killed. So too in the end, if he leaves, he's killed. He goes to save refuge. We have another contradiction. One says if Rahman al-Son, a father kills his son, the other son can become the blood avenger. The other son cannot become the blood avenger. Maybe it's the distinction is whether or not it's a mitzvah, like Rabbi Yosef versus Rabbi Akiva. But Tizbra, no. Even according to one who says it's a mitzvah, is it permitted for a son to kill his father? The only case where a son could execute his father, Rahman al-Son, is if his father is the maces. So therefore, the Gemara concludes, when it says he can kill him, that's by the grandson, but by the son, he would never be allowed to kill him. And we'll stop here, but this is the Daf Yomi in the first half of the 8th day of Pesach as well. I want to say a good Shabbat.